The Earth is full of patterns and processes that help create the world we live in. And one of the most important systems on Earth is the water cycle. The water cycle is the continuous movement of water from the ocean, to the air, to the land, and back again. It's a process that happens all the time and affects our weather and the environment. The sun and the ocean play huge roles in this cycle. In this lesson, we'll explore how the sun and the ocean interact in the water cycle and how they affect weather. By understanding this system, we can see the patterns that keep water moving and help shape the weather we experience. Let's begin by talking about the sun. The sun is the primary source of energy for the Earth. Its heat is responsible for causing many of the changes we see in nature, and one of the most important things it does is power the water cycle. When the sun's energy reaches the surface of the ocean, it heats up the water. As the water warms, it turns into water vapor in a process called evaporation. This is when the liquid water changes into a gas and rises into the atmosphere. This is the first step of the water cycle, and it shows how energy from the sun starts the process of moving water from the ocean to the air. Without the sun's heat, there wouldn't be enough energy to keep the water cycle going. Next, let's talk about what happens after evaporation. Once the water vapor rises into the atmosphere, it cools down and changes back into liquid water in a process called condensation. The water vapor forms clouds, which are made up of tiny droplets of water or ice. These clouds move with the wind and can travel long distances across the sky. When the water droplets in the clouds get too heavy, they fall back to the Earth as precipitation, which can be rain, snow, sleet, or hail. The precipitation collects in rivers, lakes, and oceans, and the cycle begins again. This constant movement of water is a pattern that keeps repeating itself, and it's what makes the water cycle such an important part of life on Earth. Now let's think about how the ocean fits into this process. The ocean is the biggest source of water on Earth, and it plays a huge role in the water cycle. Because the ocean covers about 70% of the Earth's surface, it absorbs a lot of the sun's energy. This energy causes a lot of evaporation, which means the ocean is constantly sending water vapor into the atmosphere. The more water vapor that rises from the ocean, the more moisture is available to form clouds, which can lead to precipitation. This interaction between the sun and the ocean is what drives the water cycle and helps control weather patterns. Speaking of weather, the water cycle has a big impact on the weather we experience. When water vapor rises into the atmosphere and condenses into clouds, it can affect weather conditions. For example, when clouds form and gather a lot of moisture, it can lead to rainstorms. In some areas, when warm air rises from the ocean and meets cooler air in the atmosphere, it can cause thunderstorms. In other regions, the ocean's warmth can create conditions that lead to hurricanes. This shows the cause and effect relationship between the sun, the ocean, and the weather. The sun heats the ocean, which causes water to evaporate and form clouds. These clouds can then bring different kinds of weather, depending on the conditions. Another important part of this system is transpiration, which is when plants release water vapor into the atmosphere. This also contributes to the water cycle. When the sun heats the land, it causes plants to release water vapor through their leaves, adding more moisture to the air. This moisture eventually joins the water vapor from the ocean to form clouds and continue the cycle. Understanding the water cycle and how it affects weather also helps us see patterns in weather systems. For example, coastal areas that are close to the ocean tend to have more rainfall because there is more water evaporating from the ocean and forming clouds. In contrast, desert regions, which are farther from the ocean, get less rainfall because there is less water vapor in the atmosphere. The water cycle also helps explain why some areas experience seasons of heavy rain, like during monsoon seasons, while others might have long dry spells. The interaction between the sun and the ocean creates patterns in the weather that we can observe and predict. In summary, the sun and the ocean are essential parts of the water cycle, a system that moves water around the Earth and plays a key role in shaping our weather. The sun's energy causes water to evaporate from the ocean, rise into the atmosphere, form clouds through condensation, and fall back to Earth as precipitation. This process repeats in a pattern that keeps the Earth's water moving and provides us with the rain and snow that fill our rivers and lakes. By understanding how the sun and the ocean interact, we can better predict weather and see how these forces affect the world around us.